Nielsen, Redmond City Councilor, 5 children. Like I said, we go back, we served on Leadership Redmond, or got to know each other through Leadership Redmond, the longest class ever, 20 through 22. We're on the Ready board together as well. He served in the Army, did some interesting things jumping out of planes. That I'll let him share more in detail. But John, thanks for coming up. He's a Rotarian, so let's give him a Kiwanis round of Thanks, sir.
Yes. So before I get started, I do want to compliment the National Night Out. So yesterday, City Council, we had our first joint meeting in over 40 years with Redmond City Council and Bend City Council.
Really?
And afterwards, we were all kind of going to go out, and so I'm standing on the front steps of City Hall, and Mayor Melanie Keeper was standing next to me, and Councilor Anthony Broadman, both from Bend, and then State Rep Emerson Levy was kind of walking up, and she came up, and we got to talking, and they were saying like, oh, they had gone to Bend's National Night Out, and how impressed they were with the turnout in Redmond. And so I took absolute great delight in kind of bragging and saying, oh yeah, it looks like we're doing a much better job than you guys are. Isn't this fantastic? And so that small town feel and kind of those, just the community involvement was so much better just by their own admission here than it was there. So we got a little bit of bragging rights. So thank you to everybody who participated in that. So again, my name is John Nielsen. I am one of the new Redmond City Councilors. My kind of plan for today was kind of tell you how I got here, and then kind of talk about just what I've seen in kind of the first 7 months and kind of some of the things that I am proudest of that we've accomplished. I do want to cover a couple of disclaimers first. First one is, I am a city councilor. I am not the city councilor. I do not speak for the city. I do not speak for the city councilor. What's the line? All opinions expressed by this individual represent this individual only, and it's solely for entertainment purposes. The next one is, I am not a professional speaker at all, and that will become abundantly clear to you as we go through this. A little bit about me. So I grew up in a very small town in southern Wisconsin. It's about 1,400 people. And it was corn and cows and a couple of factories. And so when you graduated high school, you were assigned either a field, a factory job, and you got to pick which one you wanted, and then everybody got assigned their own bar stool. And I recognized early on in my life that that was not what I wanted. And so growing up very poor, I joined the service. And I did become a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne. It's a whole different story, and I don't have time to cover it, but I had about 104 jumps, and I ended my career with a complete malfunction. So I burned in at 500 feet, no parachute. I got my reserve open. I spent several years in a wheelchair. A lot of luck and many, many good doctors. So every day that I'm here is great. But while I was recovering, my father had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. And he was an owner-operator truck driver, so he was a small business owner. And so I got out of the service just in time to kind of help him shut down the family business, because I did not want to be a truck driver. And kind of help him settle his affairs, make sure my mom was taken care of. But again, the town I grew up in, everybody was on the same bar stool that I left them at. And so I was talking to an Army buddy of mine who had gotten out just before, and he says, hey, you should come out here. I'm going to this school called COCC. I'm in this little town you've never heard of called Bend, and he's in the nursing program. And I thought, I'm ready for a change. I want to see something new. I want to have some adventure while I'm a little bit young, so I threw everything I owned in the back of my Ford Ranger pickup truck. I had about $3,000 in the name, and I headed west. I knew one person this side of the Mississippi, and that was it. I drove straight through, and I got to Bend about 2:30 in the morning on April 12th, 2000. And the reason I remember it is because I rolled in, it was dark. I had started my drive in eastern Montana and driven straight through. And so by the time I hit Bend, I was pretty dog tired. And the first hotel that I saw that did not scare the bejesus out of me and had a vacancy light was the River House. I pulled into the parking lot, walked into the lobby to get a room. I never made it to my room because I started talking to the girl behind the counter. And 23 years and 5 kids later,
Wow.
we're doing okay. So I can honest to God say I literally married the first girl I met in Oregon. We bought our first home in Redmond together in 2003 at the south end of the canyon. We kind of outgrew that, and so we moved to the other end of the canyon in 2012. My wife is a very good shopper, and we were able to upgrade before kind of everything blew up and nobody could afford to buy anything anywhere. In my day job, I am the manager for the Mid-Oregon Credit Union here in town. So I have a staff of about a dozen folks. I manage about $110 million in deposits, and we have just over 10,000 members. When you consider the size of Redmond is 37,000 people, having 10,000 members is a pretty decent chunk of the community. And through that, I got to meet so many people who live in Redmond from every aspect of life, from every economic structure. I got to meet the have-too-muches and the have-almost-nothings. And I became intimately involved in their lives. And there are few things in this world that'll get you more intimately involved with somebody than looking at their checkbook. And so I also kind of became involved in community events through part of my job. So started going to chamber events, got involved in Leadership Redmond with Chris. As he said, we went through a 9-month course. It only took us 27 months to get through. Thank you, COVID. But we did get through it, and then both of us at that time stepped up to join the Ready Board. And so I've gotten to see the business development side as well as the employee side. I decided to run for city council because I looked around and I saw just there aren't enough folks like us who are stepping up to make the community better. And I mean, Kiwanis, you do volunteer work, Rotary does volunteer work, and I thought this would be something that I could, at least lend a hand. I like solving problems. I've got a financial background, and so to be able to throw my hat in the ring and say, I don't really care who broke it, let's figure out how to fix it. And so Catherine Osborne, Kat Zwicker, and myself kind of ran as we're of different political parties, but we kind of ran as just the same caucus, kind of walking down the middle of the road and just kind of solution-oriented. Not looking for partisanship, not looking to declare one side the winner over the other, just what's broken and what's the most pragmatic way to fix it, and be good stewards of the tax dollar. So we were all sworn in. Kat had been appointed the previous cycle, but we were all sworn in January. And so I'm going to touch a little bit about kind of what I'm proudest of that we've accomplished in just those first 7 months, and then I'm going to open it up to you guys for questions. I'm glad to see there's nobody serving eggs or lettuce or tomatoes today, but we'll open it up for questions after. So, the first big thing that I think everybody's kind of aware of, and I'm sure you guys have gotten presentations on it, is the wetlands project. And kind of moving on with that. That will, we're getting close to breaking ground. That's still in the design phases. But something to keep in mind, because it's $70 million, so it's not money that we're going to spend lightly. But the mechanical plant at the north end of the canyon is going to fail at some point. It's at the end of its mechanical life. It's also nearing capacity. And I don't know if you've ever had a clogged toilet at the house, but on a city scale, that's not something that I want to see. So it will serve, the current facility serves about 2.8 million gallons a day. The new one will serve 4.6 at a cheaper cost. It is also easily upgradable and far more cost effective. The next one, somebody asked me a question about what, kind of environmental friendly and energy policy, and one of the things that I'm proud of, it's a small change, but upgrading all of the street lights to LEDs, that will take place over the next, I think, 18 months, give or take. But the new ones that we're moving to have a 25-year life expectancy, and they operate at a fraction of the cost of the current ones. So, the biggest project that we won't see benefits probably until 26 to 28, but it is the thing that I'm the most proud that I get to participate in, which is the North Point Housing Development. And what this is this is a public-private partnership using county lands and state funds to build 450 homes, and well, so it'll be mixed-use apartments, cottages, and single-family homes. The target for this is we want it to be 50 to 60% affordable or workforce housing. So these are folks that are at basically either 80% or less of adjusted median income. So no matter what happens, and the number of times I get called names or we have weird stuff that makes national news because people are crazy, I get to help 450 Americans get that much closer to the American dream. Despite any frustration that I have in this job or any hurdles that I may have to overcome or the sleepless nights or the stress, it's a gift to be able to do that. So that's the thing that I'm the proudest of. A couple other items real quick. So we're looking at expanding the 9th Street from Veterans Way all the way out to 126 to hopefully ease up traffic on 97, make that a little bit less terrifying. We're going to reorient Spud Bowl and improving parking and access to Sam Johnson Park and kind of trying to make that all one cohesive unit. And so people will be able to park up at the high school and then have a secure, safe trail to be able to walk down the park to make things a little bit easier for music on the green. You know, other type of events where we can expand services, make the park a little bit more welcoming, a little bit more friendly, and kind of feel more like a single solitary unit as opposed to just kind of stuff that's stuck together. The South Highway 97 revitalization project, that is going to be a multi-year project, but it's going to be very similar to what Downtown Urban Renewal did. So Durack and kind of how they revitalized the downtown, and for those of us who have been here since the recession, it used to be a whole lot of antique malls and boarded up windows. And to see how well we've kind of built that neighborhood back up and the restaurant culture that's come in the stores. As somebody who runs a business on South 97, I cannot wait to see that really get going in earnest. We do have the public safety building, which I know that Devin came and lobbied you guys for. So thank you guys for those of you who voted for it. Thank you for that, because the law enforcement needs it. And if you ever have the opportunity to tour the existing police station, it will make you very glad the way that you voted, because they've made a very good use of that space, but it's time for them to move on.
John, what's going to happen to the old building?
To be determined.
Okay.
There's some talk about selling it, or maybe giving it to the fire station for administration, but that's far enough away yet that I don't have a clear vision of what that's going to look like. There are ongoing conversations, and I think nothing is off the table at this point. I don't see it going into private property hands. I think it will remain a public building of some kind, but I'm not sure where it's going. We started drilling well 9 just on the 31st, so that's over by the dog park, to ensure that we do continue to have running clean water out of your taps and out of your hoses. We did just vote to remodel the senior center kitchen to allow them to expand services. Very, very glad that we were able to get a bid that was kind of within budget and and a full bid, not just part of it, but a full remodel.
Right.
Looking forward to that. We're upgrading the cameras within the city to kind of help. The new ones are going to be cellular based, so they'll be mobile, so they'll be able to move them to different locations, so that if we're seeing trouble spots in the community, the police will be able to relocate those cameras around, so that we can kind of control and kind of keep an eye on the situation as needed. The old ones are also at the end of their life expectancy, and they don't talk to each other well. There's several different systems that have been upgraded over the years, and they're just kind of bolting old systems onto new systems. And so this will allow us one kind of cohesive software program that will be more cost effective for the city rather than having to pay all these different software licenses every year. Let's see, what else is on my list? Oh yeah, the airport. So we've got $147 million project coming due. What does that translate to you guys? First off, the airport is self-funded. So that's not your property tax. The airport doesn't pay for itself. The city owns it, and it's a pretty special and unique situation. The airport actually more than pays for itself because they share some of the city's administrative functions, and so they kick in about $1.5 million plus every year just to kind of help keep the lights on at City Hall and pay for staff. So it is a benefit to us. The question, and I'm sure some of you are already aware of this, but everybody always asks, when is Portland coming back? The answer is in the fall. Yes.
Zach here.
It is going to be a seasonal. It will be a seasonal flight daily. I'm going to ask that you use it. If you want it to be year-round, we have to use it. And that's it went away in COVID, and I think it wasn't quite penciling out the way they wanted. And I think just because of the drop in flights due to COVID, I think it was a nice, easy way for them to kind of walk away. They're coming back because they've seen we've had a 17% uptick just at the airport since COVID. So we've more than recovered from all of the kind of the turmoils from those years. We've also got Vegas coming on. That'll be twice weekly flights, I believe. And then Santa Rosa, California, which I'm told is the home of Charles Schulz. So if you fly there, the entire airport is done up like Charlie Brown and the Peanuts. So it might be worth just hopping on a flight just to take a look at it and go see Snoopy. So the new expansion is going to start, it'll start next summer. It's going to add about 50,000 square feet to the concourse, which will include more food, more concessions. So if you want to fly out on a weekday morning, that line to get a cup of coffee before you hit the plane is ridiculous. So adding a few more kiosks will be a welcome sight. Also jet bridges, so no more having to run out in the rain. So that'll be nice too. Yes. Okay, so we've also, I mean, I'm sure if you've paid attention to the news, there's also been some trouble spots. We had the issue with the raccoon here recently. That was really hard to take. And to recognize that we are a very special community, and to end up on the national news for something just that stupid was really heartbreaking. I was overwhelmed to see the amount of support of the people who came out to support just the unity and to recognize that that kind of action is not who we are. And while we may disagree politically, we can fight about issues without attacking people. And so hopefully we'll continue to have discussions about that. I don't have an update. It is an ongoing investigation, and I don't have an update, and I don't want to get ahead of it. I imagine when this person is caught, we're going to hear a story of a very long, long history of bad life choices. But I don't have any updates on that. But some people have been asking me about it and kind of see where it's at. So it is ongoing. It is active. But more importantly, is that's not going to define who we are. Yes.
What support was given to Clifford and as a council? How did you come around him?
So Clifford and I have been friends for a lot of years, and I'm not going to speak for him, as I said, but when I approached him about it, and I made a very conscious effort not to come up and say, hey man, if you need anything, I'm here for you, because everybody, I mean, he got just drowned in support cards and emails and phone calls. And they did have, he did have some added security for the sake of his family. But his exact words to me are, John, I am 72 years old. Do you think this is the first time this has happened to me? And it just, I think, yeah, I mean, and I think we were offended for him on his behalf a lot more than he was actually offended. He's not, I mean, as much as I hate to say it, like this isn't, that wasn't the first time that this kind of thing has happened. But I think this, knowing the community was behind him and people showing up meant so much not only to him, but to his family. I know that his wife, and again, I don't want to, I know that his wife really appreciated it. And she was really touched just to see the level of support from all aspects of the community coming out. So, but thank you for asking. The big thing on everybody's mind, and the thing that I kind of saved for last was, well, two things actually. I'm going to touch on dispensaries first because I know a lot of people have questions on dispensaries. So we had a long ongoing conversation about whether or not to allow dispensaries, and ultimately we did decide that we're going to put it not on this coming ballot, but on the following one, and let the people decide. It's not up. In my mind, 7 people shouldn't get to make that decision. I know where I stand on it, but there's a lot of things in this world that I don't like that are illegal, and I don't get to decide that they're illegal just because I don't like them. Mayonnaise, for example. I don't understand it, but I don't think it should be illegal just because I don't like it.
We'll work you out of office.
Yeah, so there's a big mayonnaise constituency. I apologize, and I didn't mean that. But what we are going to do is we're going to look at what's called TPMs, time, place, and manner, so that if it is voted in, we know what those regulations are going to look like, what kind of controls, what kind of safety measures are put in place. The other thing is if the federal government decides that it's the same as selling soda pop, it's going to be off to the races, and we're going to be playing catch up quickly. So we want to get ahead of it so that we can put in the language, if this is approved, this is what it's going to look like. If it's not approved, then it stays the way that it is, and we go from there. One thing that I am going to advocate very strongly for, I hear a lot of people make the argument about the tax benefits to the city. It's not as significant as some of the pro-marijuana people would have you believe. Okay? If we're very, very lucky, in quotes, very lucky, and we had, say, 2 dispensaries, we'd be looking at maybe somewhere between $200,000 to $400,000 a year, which in a budget of $157 million is a rounding error. What it would allow us to do, though, and I've talked with school board members and the superintendent, they already see issues with it in the schools. So one of the things that I am pushing very hard for is, if it is approved, I want a line item in the city budget that funds will go to the schools for a diversionary program and additional support so that they can deal with an issue that they're already having to struggle to deal with. But again, the people are going to have to decide what kind of community we want to live in and whether or not that's something that we want. The last one and the big one is homelessness. So we have just secured 12.5 acres for the city. It's a 10-year lease for $0. Gotta love the price. We are working with nonprofits. I'm sure you've heard a thing or two about that. And trying to work to build a campus facility to allow different nonprofits to provide services to the folks in need. And I know that there's a lot of kind of varying opinions about what the city's role is, what the government role is, what the NGO's role is. My personal view is we find the dirt for folks to live and then work with our partners to get them there. Whether that's single-family homes, we line out, say this is what a neighborhood, this is a new neighborhood. Hayden comes in and they throw up a bunch of homes and they sell them and that's how it works. Or we say, okay, these are the folks who can't afford homes. They're still here. How do we help them? And so working with our nonprofit partners like Mountain View, like Oasis Village, like Jericho Road, like Bethlehem Inn, we can help them build a support structure and then kind of let the people who know how to fix these issues. Some of them are going to be addiction counseling. Some of them are going to require police intervention. Some of them just need a little bit of breathing room so they can get back on their feet. But I think we are all better off if we're able to turn that person who's working but living in their car, we are all better off if we can get them into an apartment, get them off the street, get them some stability, get them some sanity, get them some dignity so that they can carry on. So with that, I'm going to leave. I will open it up to questions and kind of leave it at that.
John, how much of the money for the North Point development is HUD money?
Say that again?
Is it mostly HUD money?
That's a really complicated question. So the answer is kind of. So because it's a multi-year project, what's going to happen is we've got a good chunk of money right now to start putting in infrastructure for design for the development itself. And then we have to go to the government. And so how we do the funding, because that funding runs in cycles,
Right.
and I've had lots of different conversations about this, but what we have to do is we have to say, okay, we've got this current bank of money. How much of it can we afford to do affordable housing and keep going? How much of it needs to be market rate? And then in the next funding cycle, we go for grants, we go for additional funding, and then we can kind of add to it. So I think the slated finished project is 2028. So ask me again in 2029, and I'll be able to tell you how much of it was HUD money. The answer is as much as we can possibly get.
Yeah.
So. Anybody else? Yes?
So what's your opinion, or do you have an opinion on photo enforced traffic laws?
I will tell you that I have not had those conversations at least within city government. I have mixed feelings because in theory I think it's great. It's what happens if my kid borrows my car. Can he run faster scared than I can mad? Right? I mean, there's
The car is guilty in that case.
right, but how do you punish
Exactly.
the car? I mean, so there's a lot of things. I've also seen enough scams in my day job that I've seen cars bought under fake names, and I've seen people who have gotten photo enforced tickets. They've gotten like 15 or 16 tickets, and they've had a bench warrant issued for them for a car out of Los Angeles, and they've never been to Los Angeles. That was bought in their name. So I'm not saying I'm not completely against it, but I'm not convinced that it's reliable enough for us to start penalizing people for it. I do think that using the photo enforcement is a great way for the police to collect data and then pass that on to the traffic, to the infrastructure and look at, okay, do we need this, does this, no more yield, this needs to be a stop sign. Do we need to have additional traffic enforcement stakeouts in this location? So I think as data gathering, I'm all for it. Beyond that, I'm not sold.
So we were out of town, but it sounds like the big concert last week was quite the success. 25, 30,000 people,
Yeah.
in one particular show. Oh, those are all me?
Yep.
Oh, wow. But I've heard that there was some pretty snarly traffic issues.
Yes.
And the lady, the gal that was watching our house, for example, left the concert, or the concert got over at 11, she didn't get home till 2:30 in the morning. What can we do about that? I mean, we're going to see some of that again this week with the fair, but.
So, but as long as I've lived here, there's always been 2 miles worth of backup on 97 North for Fair Week. I mean, it's a trade-off. So we want the money that they bring in. It's good for the fair. It is good for raising Redmond's reputation overall. People who may not have come here otherwise get to see it like, wow, this is a great town. We should come back here, right? We should eat in the restaurants. We should play golf. We should shop in the stores. For those of us who live here and have to get around, it's a pain in the butt. I think what we need to do and what we're working on is looking at increasing capacity for north-south travel on the east side of town, as well as adding some east-west connectivity kind of across the tracks, across the canyon, and looking at adding rerouting some of that traffic to maybe ease the congestion. Because the amount of cars is a single problem we may not be able to fix, but where we have those pain points, looking at those intersections and saying, how do we do this, and how do we do it? And that's traffic engineers. That is way outside of my subject matter expertise.
I'm just wondering if maybe that concert puts this back on the front burner a little bit.
Well, I think that's as much as I hate to say that's not a city function. The fair is an independent entity, and they do kind of get to decide what they do. I mean, we work very closely with them, and we have input. You know, it would not have been my choice for them to have restricted the parking for the 4th of July, but they had it booked. And so we kind of have to roll with that. And it brought in money to the area with the overland. Thank you. With the overland, so it did bring in money. It brought in resources. It did elevate the community. The trade-off was we had people setting off illegal fireworks all over town, and it sounded like you were growing up in Bosnia. You know, so. But we did have fewer. We issued more citations than Ben did, and had fewer complaints. So again, needing to brag. But you know, I think we need to continue to work with the fair, and then work with transportation and infrastructure to try to support those. I am hesitant to tell them what they can and cannot host on their land, because I think we have a really good relationship, and I don't want to ruin that. And I don't think that it would, but it's a delicate conversation for sure.
On that, just quickly, I'd offer, I traveled to several U.S. national parks and Canadian national parks in the last year, and more places are forcing people to go to a giant parking area and ride a bus into the park, and parking elsewhere and bringing buses into the fairgrounds. Could be a pretty straightforward solution.
It would be, where would we put the parking lot?
Yeah,
that's the issue. And we have the kind of the same issue with the airport, and that's one of the reasons why the parking fee went up. Was addition, because it allows us to generate bondable. We can increase the amount of bond that we go out for. It also soured the milk a little bit in terms of people just using the parking lot. So it extends the life of the parking lot and kind of pushes off us having to expand it, because we don't have the capacity issues. I would be all in favor of it, but do we want to just open up a bunch of gravel lots, or do we want more acres and acres of pavement? So, sir.
Kind of tagging on to that, but also what John asked about 3 hours worth of driving out of a fairgrounds. I've had a discussion in the last half year at least of a highway to bypass the town.
So that is something that we're actively working on.
Probably east of the airport, east of Bend, maybe to get past Bend, to commercial traffic especially that needs to go to California from Washington State. So what Dan just said made me think, there's this highway out there, the other side of the airport, maybe a huge parking lot off of that with buses.
It is certainly something worth entertaining. Like I said, that one is a little bit above my pay grade. But we are working on, like I said, better north-south connectivity east of town to allow commercial trucks to kind of divert before they hit Center Butte, and then the Center Butte meets, and then kind of come back in past the airport and the fairgrounds. So hopefully that'll get some of the semis off the road. Geographically, we're kind of stuck because we've got the railroad tracks, we've got the canyon, and so everything kind of ends up getting driven to either Highland or 97. And so we're going to have to be very creative with the solutions. None of them are short term, and none of them are easy fixes.
John, thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. There's a big
I can hang around.
gaggle of women coming in.
Yes.
Thank you. Here's our little token of appreciation. It's a juniper pen.
Nice. All right.
Your picture. Thank you.
Thank you.
John, thanks again. Appreciate it. All right, thank you for letting us wrap up a few minutes early. John, thank you for your presentation. See you all next week.